Good Morning Liberty.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson. How's it going on this beautiful Monday in Nashville, Tennessee, Chuck?
Oh, it's going great.
It's been a good weekend.
Now a 3-time Elon Musk interacted with podcast.
We knew
show.
that, yeah.
And we did get reposted by Candace Owens. Now, does that make us
and
part
Dave
of
Smith?
the Hamas crowd now or something? Are we?
I don't know.
Are we anti-Israel or something?
I don't know what the rules are on that kind of stuff.
Are we never going to get invited by the Daily Wire now?
Guilty by association, I guess.
Is this Good Morning Fascist?
So if you've been following us for a while, especially if you're in our
are we going to have Jake Shields on? Is this like the progression of where we're at in X sphere?
I don't really want to do that.
No, because you come here for the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we do here when we want to, and so when we're wrong, we'll admit we're wrong, but it's hardly ever. But yeah, I guess you're going to give them the lowdown on what we do here.
Yeah, so
Liberty. We talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning and truth. Whenever we want to.
We do those things.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been following us for a while, especially if you're in the Fed Haters Club, you know that we've been diligently working towards hitting creator status on X, which takes, I know for a lot of big pages, you're like, ugh.
As soon as they started it.
So anyone on a big page watching this right now, you're like, 5 million impressions in 3 months. I get that on a Tuesday,
Yeah.
But
or
for
I've
us,
got 1 billion impressions.
For us lowly, smaller pages, it is a big hurdle to get over. So you can finally get to making dollars from posting on X, and we've been working towards doing that.
You know, when they make those thresholds, you're just like, I wonder how they come up with this. But it's probably a pretty good threshold.
They whittled it down to a percentage that would be able to make it over that hurdle for sure. And we made it over that hurdle. Going into the weekend, you see, we knew we had the 5 million, and we were at like 4.6 million, something like that. We had a big comment pop off randomly on someone's page that got like 100 and something thousand impressions or whatever. And then we're like, all right, we only got to hit 300,000 more impressions to hit that creator status on X. And we knew that we had about 7 days to do it in, okay? Because it's a rolling 3 months that we have to hit that. And some of our bigger days were about to roll off of our 3-month period. So we knew we had about 7 days to hit those. And let me tell you what, we made a video on Saturday night, and it's got 4.8 million views.
Almost hit the 5 million and with one view.
It turns out I didn't need to do anything for the last 3 months. All I needed to do was make that video right there. And the question of today's episode will be, was this video deceptively edited? Because here's the problem with me, Charlie. When something like this pops off and it's getting retweeted by people, and of course I see some comments and I see some retweets from people and they're like, oh, this was clearly deceptively edited. If you didn't see the video, it is a debate between Douglas Murray and Douglas Murray. And so it's clips from a previous time that Douglas Murray was on Lex Friedman's podcast.
I know I sit in this chair and I just interrupt you. I had another thought before you go into the actual substance.
Yeah.
Which is about what we were just talking about. Because, pretty soon when this is a massive show and everybody's like, oh, you're so lucky. Look how you got here. Like what I was telling Nate this weekend is that we've been at this for a long time. If you look, we have, almost 1,600 episodes.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for almost 6 years. It'll be 6 years in June. Like we've been doing this full time, almost 5 days a week since like June of 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's a lot.
And a lot of people, when they come in and they see a show and they're like, oh yeah, look, so lucky. Like the point is that I want to encourage people with is like, don't ever give up. Like there's a point where you're like, oh man, I've been doing all this content and I've been like, I keep going and it's like never getting anywhere. It's not resonating. You just got to keep making banger content. And if you don't give up, like you're going to manifest and succeed in your dreams. And I just want people to be encouraged by that That it's like you have to, when you feel like giving up, most people, 99% of people, they'll do it.
Mhm.
They'll give up because that's the easy way. It's the easy thing to do. And it doesn't matter what life has thrown at Nate or I, you just keep going. Every day you make a decision like, I'm going to keep going. How many times have we come into the show like, I don't feel like doing it today?
Like almost every
What's
time.
it matter? You're always like, what's it matter anyway? This is going to get 4 retweets and, whatever. But, you keep making bigger content. You keep telling the truth. You keep being yourself. You keep at it every single day. People are going to resonate with authenticity and the truth.
Bailey asked if being in bands before doing this podcast is why we're so persistent, why we've stuck with it for so long up to this point. I think so, except for we both quit being in bands. Yeah. But I quit because I was probably going to die if I didn't quit playing music. I think that was pretty much going to be the conclusion of that career. And also, we didn't get to where we wanted to get in bands. I do this every day. It's not just like I haven't given up on doing this. This is what I care about. So like I just come in and post about what I care about every day. And I hope that eventually enough other people are going to care about what I care about also. And so it hasn't been super hard to not give up doing this because I'm like, what else? What else would I do? I have to do something creative. Mm-hmm. And we did that in music for a long time. This is my creative outlet now. And I don't know what else I would do. I would have to be doing something. And so this is it because it's what I want to be doing. So the question has been, and of course I saw some comments and stuff like that, was the clip deceptively edited? This clip where Douglas Murray is debating Douglas Murray. And the first thing I have to tell you is I sort of thought that would be obvious considering the fact that Douglas Murray was not in fact debating Douglas Murray.
Yeah.
And so my assumption is
he didn't clone himself.
Yeah.
And sit across from himself and debate himself.
Yeah. So if you drill down a little bit deeper, I guess the question would be, well, is it out of context, the whole thing? I'm going to play the 2 source materials that were put together in this video that's got almost 9,000 retweets now and almost 5 million views on it. And because if it did make it out there to a lot of people, which it did, I don't want it to be a lie. I don't want to be a person who's spreading a lie out there to people. So what's the point that we're making here with this video? In the original video, he's talking about, in the video from the Lex Friedman podcast, he's talking about the lived experience of black people and this idea that you can't talk about racism, if you're not black and you haven't experienced it. And so that's really the context. Lex Friedman then asked him a question about, well, like, what about a Holocaust survivor? Should you listen to them? And then he has what I think is a very important response about the Holocaust afterwards. He didn't bring up the Holocaust as his go-to. It was a question from Lex Friedman. That's why he brought it up. But I think he makes the point. And then, yes, in this video, when I put it together, which, by the way, I was already in bed on Saturday night, and this idea popped in my head to put these 2 clips together.
So you stayed in bed and got your laptop
Well, I got up and I got my laptop, and I got back in bed. I screen recorded the 2 clips on my phone while I was setting up the project and stuff in this software that we use. It took me a total of 30 minutes to put the video together. That was it. And then I immediately just fell back asleep. I'd already taken my sleep beds and everything. So I was delirious at the time I was making it. Yeah. And it was minimum effort to put the video together. And it's just sort of hilarious that that's the one that ends up good. And isn't that the way it goes? We've said that so many times.
It is.
We've said it so many times that that's the way it goes.
Yeah.
I'm going to play the
clip. The point
clip.
is post the content.
Yeah. I'm going to play the clip that went viral.
It doesn't matter whether or not your ex tries to shut you down. It doesn't matter whether or not you don't feel like it. Just post the content.
Yeah. So it will
resonate.
Here's the content, and I want to watch the source material just for full disclosure so we can show people whether or not this was me trying to deceive people with Douglas Murray taking Douglas. And by the way, I didn't say who won the debate.
You did.
Okay? You can decide for yourself if Douglas Murray won this debate.
Yeah.
Okay? Which I think he did.
Yeah.
But it's up to you whether or not which version you think won the debate.
Well, it depends on where you start.
Yeah.
Like, do you have to have lived experience or not?
Yeah, I don't know. All right.
What's the question? What's the affirmative?
Let's watch the clip and I'll show you the sources.
Have you been to the crossing points?
I really resent that form of argumentation.
When were you last there at all?
Sure. I really resent it.
You should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
This is not an attractive invitation.
I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you spend a career talking about something.
I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible.
I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country, even in passing, unless I've at least been there.
If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because...
Hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. It's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
If you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, if you've never seen any of this going on.
I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did.
But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit, whilst developing all of these views about it.
This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct.
Should at least know what it is, what the territory is, what the situation is in the region.
So there's an irony to this, but let's skate over the irony.
I like the way you ended it.
My firm opinion on this is that video is hilarious.
It is.
Okay. I think it's hilarious.
It's objectively, it's funny.
But I'm not a comedian, so you can't take my word for it.
That's true.
You
Yeah.
know?
You've never been on a comedic stage.
It's not even actually funny because it wasn't put together by a comedian in the first place.
By an expert.
You can't even take it to be funny. It's actually not even possible for it to have comedic value in the first place because it wasn't put together by a comedian.
The more I watch it, like the funnier it gets.
I've watched it a lot of times. I would say
it's very well put together.
Yeah.
Even though you did it quickly, like the conversation flows.
So
between himself.
There are two different clips that are put together here. Of course, one from the Joe Rogan Dave Smith debate that just happened
a couple days ago.
Yeah, just a couple days ago, and then there's a clip from the Lex Friedman podcast. I don't know when. I didn't look to see when that was. As I said, very minimal effort. I did not look to see when that actually was, but it was sometime after the woke crusades had started, I believe, in 2020 time. And so they were talking about the lived experience of black people and talking about racism.
Looks like it was June of 2022.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
2.5 years ago,
right.
almost 3 years ago.
So what just to try and be like as honest as possible about this, and this is what I tried. This is what like I tried to bring to the table. I think is the whole thing is what we try to bring to the table, and has maybe held us back a little bit. Is that we don't ever want to lie to anyone, and we don't want to be deceptive to anyone. And so I wanted to be sure that we do our due diligence and show people the two source clips that this came from. And here's the one from Joe Rogan that everyone has heard.
When were you last there at all?
I've never been.
You've never been?
Well, am I not allowed to talk about it now? I've never been to. Have you ever been to Nazi Germany? Are you allowed to have feelings about them?
You can't time travel, but you can.
Right.
But you can travel.
Okay, but so what? So what's the point? Like,
No,
okay.
I find that
Lots of people have been there and agree with me, and lots of people have been there and agree with you.
Yeah, but
so
if
I don't
you're
know
going
what
to spend a year and a half talking about a place, you should at least do the courtesy of visiting it.
All right. I just think this is a non-argument.
You don't
but
think?
Okay. No, I think it's a non-argument.
But if you're an expert,
Well, you have to go and touch the ground. To
No,
be
I
able
think
talk
you have
about
to
it?
see. I think it's a good idea to see stuff, particularly if you
okay.
spend a career talking about something. Yes. I have a journalistic rule of trying never to talk about a country, even in passing, unless I've at least been there.
Okay.
It's
But that's
sort of
not
normal. It's a normal thing to do. You're talking about, hang on, you're talking about crossing points. And not only have you never been to a crossing point in either Egypt or in Israel, but you've never even been to the region.
Okay. Again, I think this is a non-argument. I don't understand.
No, it's not a non-argument.
Yeah, it is.
It's not a non-argument if you're insisting that you're an expert of some kind, or not claiming you're an expert, but still talking about it, about the provisions going into Gaza or not, if you've never seen any of this going on.
So you're not
That's
allowed to
amazing
speak
to
about
me.
things that you've read about. You can only speak about things that you've seen with your own eyes.
You can talk about what you want, as you're proving. But that is a different matter from spending an awfully long amount of time talking about an issue in a region you haven't even had the courtesy to visit, whilst developing all of these views about it. I mean, now I slightly get an idea of where you're coming from.
So there's actually a really important point there, because Dave actually makes the point that you'll see in this clip where he mentions the Holocaust later on. And there's a part there that I think maybe I should have included as part of his response, because it would have brought more context to it. But he does contradict what he earlier had said about people who had experienced the Holocaust. He says in the next clip that you could learn more from people who have written about the Holocaust than people who actually experienced the Holocaust. That's the point of the video. Okay, the rest, honestly, that is the point of the video. The rest of it was put together for comedic purposes because I thought it was hilarious. But the Holocaust point is the point. You got someone who literally went through the Holocaust, someone who wrote about the Holocaust, and he says the person who wrote about it could do a better job than the person who actually went through it. To me, that destroys his whole stupid point he's making right here. Let me tell you something about what he's been there, okay?
I think, let me just tell you why I think he did this. You see the book
Yeah.
on the table.
Yeah.
I think Murray's smart enough to know that being disagreeable on Joe Rogan is going to get a lot more views and be talked about a lot more. Therefore, by default, his book
Yeah.
is going to have more views, and people are going to want to read it to see, like, okay, what does he think?
He might have gone a little bit too far. There's one thing to be disagreeable, like in a debate, but he didn't even... There were moments where there was an actual debate that took place. And that's why I pulled up a clip from it, because I wanted to do full due diligence today, which is that in the second half of the debate, I thought there were a couple moments where Murray actually made some good points and made me think about it. It's not that I agree with him fully.
Yeah.
But he stopped attacking Dave's right to talk about this and actually had the debate about the things.
About the substance.
And he did a good job.
Yeah.
All right?
I also think a few points that he made, he could have just said, oh, okay, well, yeah, I just wanted to say that. And just been like, okay, well, let's talk about the substance now.
But the thing, by that
Instead of like, you and I were talking about this before the show, it's like he jumps tracks on like certain things that you say, semantics. He's like, well, what do you mean by we?
Yeah, that part is
we
ridiculous.
At war? Or what do you mean I didn't say? Or you're saying this is the most brutal?
Yeah.
And then you talk about something completely different from what the actual conversation was, and you do it for long enough that you start to forget
what the actual
what it
point was.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like I think, because again, this morning I listened to like the first 30 minutes and I'm like, okay, it wasn't really that bad to start off with. I think he could have eased into it maybe a bit rather than saying.
He just came full Leroy
full
Jenkins
on.
out
He's
there.
Like, yeah, Joe, I know this is your show, but if it's okay with you, I would just like to point out that you don't talk to anybody else except for people you agree with, essentially.
I think Rogan should have said, all right, you're right. It is my show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who cares? Yeah. There's no rules here. Like, I talk to who I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Let me show you the clip from Lex Friedman. And let me see. I can't remember what point I was supposed to start this at in order to further deceive you. No, I screen recorded this, and so let me see here.
Steel Manning.
Oh, there is something else I wanted to say. this whole idea that he's being there. Okay. I posted out kind of a funny tweet about being an expert on stuff. And I just think it's important that we make this point. Like, he's going on an IDF tour of the area that they show you what they want you to see. And I'm not saying they hit a whole bunch of stuff, whatever, but can we all agree that they are going to show you what they want you to see and where they want to take you?
Nate and I have been there too.
We have done this.
We have been there.
We have done the military tours of the area and their mission and what it is that they're doing.
And what's in question.
Okay.
And I tell you what, it works. You know? Just like what's the name of that movie? It's not The Campaign. The one with Kim Jong-un and
The Interview.
The Interview, yes. Yeah. And you're like James Franco. You know, you go in and you're like, oh my God, this is not what we thought it was at all.
Look at that fat kid.
Fat kid at the grocery store, the plump tomatoes, you know. You're like, by the way, that's what it's like even with your own American military, okay? Like, now, Nate had a bit more experience than I did, but I remember I had the same thought, you know, when I did the Armed Forces Entertainment Tour as a musician. Okay, you go with the military and you see like, oh, there's nothing crazy happening here. They're just playing basketball.
They didn't show you one single civilian they had killed that whole time, right?
No. In fact, I thought they were doing right by America, you know? And then you went to Kuwait, Djibouti, Diego Garcia, Singapore,
UAE,
Bahrain. I mean, what were they doing over there? What were they doing in Kuwait?
They were protecting
You
national
even met
interests.
some of the special forces.
I met some SEAL
out
guys.
there
I met some CIA people in Djibouti
and Kuwait.
Yeah, and they turns out
they were doing the Lord's work.
They were doing the Lord's work out there.
Yeah.
We just went there and did tours every single day. They would just take us around and show us all this stuff. And we appreciate them for showing us. It was a great time. I had a really fun time doing all that stuff.
But
that doesn't mean you learned everything about the area while you were on that tour.
The point of being there, it's like, okay, if you're like, if you're gonna take this line, like if you're, as he said on the Joe Rogan's show, like, I have this journalistic line essentially, like, I'm not going to talk about a country, and even in passing, unless I've been there.
Unless it's Iran. He talks about Iran a lot, and he hasn't been to Iran.
Right.
Yeah, he's taking Israel's word for it.
The only way to like truly be there is like you have to put your life at risk, and you meet with Israelis, then you meet with Hamas, then you go down the streets and interview people. You try to make it to the underground tunnels, and you interview people there. And then you can come out with a story and be like, I've been there. Yeah. I am now the expert. If you survive, I'm now the expert. I've talked to both sides. I can tell you who's BSing and who's not. I've been in the tunnels. I was in the hospital that was bombed. I've been there. Then you can talk about it. But that's such a pompous, ridiculous line to draw.
He destroys it when he makes the statement in this video right here, where he says that there are people.
He contradicts his own self. And that's the point of the video.
He does contradict that idea where he says there are people who have written about the Holocaust that have done a better job than people who actually experienced the Holocaust. And let me just show you that right now.
The thing is, I really resent that form of argumentation.
Sure.
I really resent it. I have the right to talk about whatever the hell I want. And no one's going to stop me or try to intimidate me.
Yeah.
Or tell me that I can't simply because of my skin color. And I think that if I said to somebody else the other way around, it would be equally reprehensible. If I said, shut up, you have no right to criticize anything that Douglas Murray says because you've not got my skin color. Okay, it's not an exact comparison, but seriously, is that a reasonable form of argument? You haven't been through everything I've been through in my life, therefore you can't comment. No. In that case, nobody can talk about anything. We might as well pack up, go home, and isolate ourselves.
Strong words, but can you try to steal me on the case? Not in this particular situation, but there's people that have lived through something that can comment in a very specific way. Like, for example, Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
There is a sense in which maybe a basic sense of civility when a Holocaust survivor is speaking about their experience of the Holocaust than an intellectual from a very different part of the world that's simply writing about nuanced geopolitics of World War II just should not interrupt the Holocaust survivor.
We physically interrupt them if they're telling
No,
their
with
story.
words, with logic and reason, that the experience of the Holocaust survivor somehow fundamentally has a deeper understanding of the humanity and the injustice of the.
Well, first of all, again, we're in even deeper waters now, but in terms of
By the way, what Friedman just said is actually, I wouldn't put in clips of Lex in there or anything, but that someone who experienced it has a deeper understanding of the humanity of it and the injustice of it. You could use that when talking about the war, because he is sort of saying, like, well, I've been there, I've seen it with my own eyes. He's got a deeper understanding of the humanity of this war. He's been to the kibbutz and all these areas, and he has a better understanding of what happened after October 7th. But this 2022 version thinks that someone who writes about the entire situation could still do a better job than someone who actually saw it with their own eyes. Here's him saying that.
wanting to listen to another person who has experienced something, yes, but not endlessly. Not endlessly. I mean, there are some people who've written about there are people who've written about the Holocaust who didn't experience the Holocaust and have written about it better than people who did. It's not this idea that the lived experience, to use this terrible modern jargon, as if there's another type. This idea that the lived experience has to triumph over everything else is not always correct. It can be correct in some circumstances. If you are sitting in a room with a Holocaust survivor and somebody who'd never.
So I think that covers the substance of the clip that I put together. Except, so the end part where he says, like, there's some irony here, but let's skate over the irony, that was out of context. He was talking about the fact that they both have microphones, and they're talking about people stealing microphones to tell their lived experience and all that. And he says that there's some irony to them having microphones. I purely thought that'd be really funny to stick that at the end of that clip.
Yeah.
I just knew that. I had picked that clip first and made sure that it went at the end of the video I put together.
I think it's what they were talking about on the Rogan show was largely around Daryl Cooper being an expert in history and talking about how Winston Churchill was the villain of World War II.
Only in the first half hour.
Right, but that kind of started the whole thing. And what he was trying to say is like, oh, well, you're a comedian or you're whatever. Like, he brought up Ian Carroll, and Ian Carroll literally in his bio says, I'm not an expert.
Yeah.
And so what he was trying to do is basically discredit other people, saying, like, you can't talk about this. And what he said in the Lex Friedman show that I thought was most important about debunking himself, almost 3 years ago, he debunked his future self by saying, well, if that's the case, we can't talk about anything. Might as well just pack up and go home. It's like, you can't have it both ways.
He can. He is having it both ways.
He's trying to, at least.
He's trying to. I don't know. This might end up doing more damage to him. And our clip might actually affect, the situation. To be 100% honest with you, it could actually affect it. I would love to hear his response to it. I'm sure it's going to be all out of context and deceptively edited and all that stuff. But here's what I wanted to do. As we mentioned earlier, we ripped apart this interview on Friday. We were yelling about it, cursing about it, all that stuff. And at that point, I had watched about the first hour and 15 minutes of it, and I had seen the clips that were floating around on the internet, the big clips. I think the idea that you have to be there to know about the thing is
that it won dumb bleep.
It could be, it did win dumb bleep. It could be true if you went there and you actually visited both sides and you actually went there and lived that experience. Going there and seeing what the IDF wants you to see is not gaining lived experience about an issue. It's just not. Okay. And so there can be people who write about this conflict that could do a better job educating you than like one person who lives in one town or one person who is on a military base could tell you about everything that's going on that's out there. You absolutely could learn more.
And what's interesting is, okay, let me give you an example of that, okay? Scott Horton, I think, does an amazing job of citing his sources of all the different reporters. He knows them all by name, by the way. And what he does is like his books are like an amalgamation of different reporting of people who are on the ground.
Those people.
By the way.
Yeah.
And he puts them all together so you don't have to go find the pieces like he did. And he puts them together in a nice little book and you can learn all this different stuff. Scott Horton, as far as I know, has never visited Ukraine.
I would love
or
to see
Russia,
Scott Horton do one.
or-
No offense to Dave. I would love to see Scott Horton do a debate with Murray or something on Joe Rogan.
And you can make an argument that the way Scott Horton is able to package those up into a book to where people can learn about the history of Russia and Ukraine and like what kind of triggered different things and the color wars and what America has done for the last 30 years to kind of, ever since the communism fell, what has America done since then? And citing all of the different reporter sources who were there, who were interviewing people, who wrote about this stuff. They were on the ground doing the stuff. You're basically taking an amalgamation of that and putting it together for people to learn about. And Douglas Murray is saying, well, Scott Horton, you haven't been there to Crimea. So how in the world could you argue that Obama let Putin take Crimea in 2014? You don't have to be there. That's the point. And he made that argument in 2022.
Yeah.
He made the argument about the Holocaust.
You wouldn't have to be
of all
you
things.
wouldn't have to be in the that is a little
of all
ironic.
Things.
A little ironic.
He made that argument about the Holocaust. And then to flip it around on this whole Israel-Gaza thing. It's like, it's crazy.
I want to make sure we play this clip before we go because we do have to go soon. There in the second half of the debate. Are
you sure we can even do this podcast?
No, we really can't.
Because I've never talked to Douglas Murray personally.
I don't know how you become.
And I've never talked to Joe Rogan personally. I've only ever talked to Dave Smith personally.
The closest I am to being an expert in anything is teaching the high school band. And that's the closest I am because all I got to do is my student teaching and I will be able to be a high school band director.
And you expert. Piano, you didn't finish piano.
Yeah, I didn't finish piano. I have to do a piano recital and my student teaching and I am an expert at teaching high school students.
Then you have that piece of paper you could put on the wall.
Then I'm an expert. I could put a diploma right there. Yeah. Right there hanging over me, and I'll be an expert.
And then you'll be enough.
Isn't that ridiculous?
That's so ridiculous.
I mean, what makes you an expert on the situation? What makes you a historian if not studying all of the history you can possibly study? Yeah. What makes you a historian? Working for an official think tank or whatever?
Experts are wrong. Experts are wrong all the time. Did we not just come out of COVID? And what the experts were saying in COVID? I mean, come on.
We talked about and
I've told you guys this for a long time. The older you get, the more you meet these experts, or you meet these owners of companies or whatever. You find out they're just regular people. Like somehow in society we put all these people on pedestals. They don't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. You just find out they're regular people.
It's just a guy.
I tell Nate this all the time when we're going to interview somebody or whatever. We're meeting somebody. I'm like, it's just a person. Mm-hmm. They're just like you. I bet they took a poop today, or they took one yesterday.
Yeah, probably.
Just like you did. It's no different. You find out that it's just regular folks. I think what makes it important.
I don't know why that made me think of the interview again, where she's like, "Does Kim poo?
Does he poo?
No,
no.
He has no butthole. He has no need for one."
Yeah. What's important is that people are willing to be authentic, to be wrong, to question things, to be willing to not have an ego and say, "Well, I know the answers." But be willing to question and continue to further the conversation and be intellectual about it and not be so pigeonholed and say like, well, I don't have to listen to what you say because like you're not an expert or you haven't lived the experience. Like whatever. Like, can we at least talk about it? And I think that's what Joe Rogan is so good at. Dave Smith is good at doing that. Like, I think a lot of people are really good at doing that, and we shouldn't dismiss that. Ian Carroll's good at it, and then it kind of sounds like the Ministry of Truth, which, he's British, so maybe
he might be fine
things are getting a little crazy over there in UK. So I don't know. But I think it's just important that we continue on the path we are now. And I will say Doug Murray made some really good points about how we can't go too far.
Mm-hmm.
There's a point where you become like a Nazi. That's too far.
Okay. It's a little too far.
So he was making good points about that, actually. So anyway.
All right, I'm going to play this clip.
Eden Alexander from New Jersey. If Hamas had not stolen the hostages...
The reason we're playing this, by the way, is because there was a moment where he stopped attacking Dave's credibility on being able to speak about these things and instead made an argument concerning the Israel-Gaza war. And I think he did a good job. Now, it didn't sway me over to his side that, like, okay, all of the killing of the tens of thousands of people is justified. But it was a good argument to make, and it made me think about the actual situation and, like, what do you do in the situation? I disagree with what they did. But that was nice to hear him make the points. Here we go.
If Hamas had not stolen the hostages and hidden them in their tunnels and hidden them in civilian homes, this war would have all been different. If they had have given them back, and they could give them back tomorrow, it would all be different. But they didn't. They decided to do what they did on the 7th and to hold on to the 250-odd hostages as it was at the beginning, from the beginning. The second reason why the war is still being prosecuted is because of the stated aim to destroy Hamas, which is the stated aim of the Israelis. Neither of these things is remotely easy, okay? And just from a point of humility, I think, on everyone's side, we should concede none of that is easy. It is not easy to get 250 hostages back when they have been distributed across the Gaza to civilian homes, hidden in tunnels, surrounded by munitions and much more. Hamas is not an actor like Denmark. Its backers don't behave the way that our governments do in the West. They have a totally different time scale that they think along. They have a totally different scale of values as well. The taunts of Hezbollah's leadership, of Hamas's leadership, of their backers in Tehran are annihilationist to their core. But at any point in the last 18 months, the Qataris, for instance, or the Iranians, the Iranian Revolutionary Government, or the Turkish government or others, could have put their pressure on Hamas to return the hostages who are still being held in captivity, and everything would be different. Secondly, as you know, I'm sure, you don't have to have seen this with your own eyes to know it. As I'm sure you know, the way in which Hamas built up the structure of the Gaza throughout the 18 years that they had was precisely to flout and use every law of war against the Israelis. Every army in a conflict has certain rules of war that you're meant to abide by. One of the most obvious is that you are identified as being a combatant, not as a civilian, okay? Another is you don't put weapons in civilian houses and civilian buildings. You do not fire from houses of worship, rockets. You do not launch attacks from hospitals. You do not keep detention facilities where you can torture and disappear people inside hospitals and other medical facilities. All of these laws of war are the laws that Hamas breaks every minute of every day by their actions. So if you want to get the hostages back, and if you want to destroy Hamas, when you're fighting against a force which does not only not follow the rules of war, but uses your following of the rules of the laws of war against you, at least concede this is a highly specific and complex military operation. And if you have, or anyone else has, and I say this genuinely, a better way to get back the hostages and to destroy Hamas, I, at any rate, am all ears.
I don't think he's all ears on that. You know, one thing I noticed that I didn't notice beforehand in that clip is that he says there's something you don't have to have seen with your own eyes to know that it's true.
He just said
it's all the terrible things that Hamas does.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that the first time.
You don't have to live that experience.
No. You don't have to see that to know it's true.
Yeah. You might have actually just been able to clip things from the same show.
Actual show.
Yeah. 3 hours and 20 minutes. He probably just contradicted himself multiple times. It's probably hard to catch.
No, so this clip right here made me at least think about the real situation on the ground. And I mean, we've all heard the Hamas uses human shields, and we've discussed all this stuff. But we have been getting a lot of comments from people that have decided that we've gone the way of like pro-Hamas or just anti-Israel or anti-Semitic or whatever it is. And if you've been listening for any amount of time, I don't understand how you would come away with that, honestly, at all. But
our biggest thing is that America shouldn't be involved.
Yeah. Like if you take away our involvement, I'll be sad about innocent people dying. But
these people have been at war for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Like, what are we going to, how do we decide who wins and loses? Like, these people, they've been at war for thousands of years. We don't need to be involved. Let them figure it out.
I think that them taking 250 hostages and dispersing them throughout Gaza was not a prescription for like leveling the place. You know, I think a lot of hostages have probably died from the IDF bombing places. I know that there are estimates on that. There's no way of actually knowing because I'm not there. But there's estimates on that. I think that they should have, and I know what they're going to say, but there should have been a lot of recon done, and they should have gone in with tactical teams to try and rescue people. And I get it. You know what would have happened? Israeli soldiers would have died in that. But you're supposed to be the better people, the more moral people in this conflict. Hamas are the dirty animals who don't care about human life. You are the godly men and women who care about human beings. And to say like, well, it's better that 50,000 of them die than some more of our troops who are supposed to be bravely risking their lives to go in and rescue these hostages. And I don't think it was the most moral way to go about doing it. I think that as the godly moral part of the war, that you actually make more of a actual sacrifice in it to try and get them back and not kill 40 or 50,000 people. Maybe it's less than that. Maybe Hamas lies about the numbers, which is very possible. Maybe it's 25, 30,000 people.
Yeah.
It's still a lot. And anyone who believes that we're all, born in the image of God, no matter what religion you are, whatever, like you should feel that you just killed a child of God to get that person right there. And that should weigh on you. And then you should consider that and then possibly risk your safety a little bit more in order to not kill 2,000 people over here so you don't have to risk your life. I just don't think it's the right way. That's easy for me to say here in Nashville, Tennessee. I haven't been there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I don't know anything about the issue.
And just so you guys know, take everything Nate said with a grain of salt. He's clearly not an expert.
Definitely not.
He's never been there.
Haven't.
So.
I have been to Djibouti, though, and if you want to know about Djibouti, you ask me about that. I'm an expert.
Hit Nate up about Djibouti.
Yep.
And
I've been all up in there.
He'll put it right in the keister for you there. We didn't even have time to get to Real ID and other things like that, so we'll have to hit that up tomorrow or something. We'll figure it out one way or another. But if you enjoyed today's episode, please share the show with a friend, a family member, or foe. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go to GodHatesFeds.com. Speaking of the image of God. GodHatesFeds.com.
Yeah.
Or you could go to joingml.com. That's joingml.com. Be part of the Fed Haters Club, the greatest club. You can't talk about the club unless you're in the club.
Yeah, I mean, you
have to
can't criticize it.
Exactly.
We need you to have that lived experience from inside the club.
Inside the club, joingml.com. Visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. And if you do all that, we'll be back again tomorrow. Hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.